instead of doing all the neighborhood cold calling and all the circle prospecting and whatnot, you're having your ISA call those people, set them up for you to call them because they showed some sort of interest, and then you nail down the appointment at that point. And I can't tell you how my business changed drastically once I did that. Once I started hiring ISAs and people working those leads for me, because it was a warm lead, all I had to do was call, have a conversation, build a rapport, and then I got the listing appointment with them, right? But I'm not spending 2 to 3 hours circle prospecting. My ISA is spending 2 to 3 hours circle prospecting and sending me those warm leads. And that's how I capitalized on that.
All right, folks, we're back for another interview. I got a good one, a returning guest. And you know who he is? Because, he killed it last time. He was here, talking about topics. We talked about a lot of stuff, James, like
Yeah.
team building and picking up the phone and online leads and cold calling and virtual assistants with cold call, all these things, right? But we have a really good topic today. It's an attention grabber because you've actually accomplished this many times over, but it's a nice big juicy topic. How do you make $1 million from a prospecting based business? A million in GCI, a million GCI from a prospecting based business, and it's always good to ask that question to a practitioner. Hey, James, how would you do it? But for the people that don't know, you might have missed the last episode, which was a killer episode. Who are you, James? And why are you an authority on this topic? Go for it, man.
Hey, James Michener in Prescott, Arizona. I run a team of 10 agents and have a wholesale division as well as private money. And I've been in real estate for a little over a decade. So, and like Gus had said, I've made $1 million 5 years in a row now, and it's been amazing. And I remember when I first wanted to hit that goal, I'd hit like 47,000, 300, then I hit 600, then I hit 7, then I hit 835, and I met with one of my mentors. I'm like, how do you hit $1 million? Like, have you made $1 million from real estate? He's like, yeah, I mean, I have for the past 3 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do that, right? I set my goal, and that was like in December that I talked to him, and I just started making adjustments, getting more help, and I made $1.2 million. I still have the pay stub, the 1099 from it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, Shan, look what I did. Who's my wife? I'm
You
like,
made
look,
it.
I made over $1 million. How awesome is that? So, um, but yeah, it takes some work and it takes some grind, just like how we were talking about your Facebook group and just going after it, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%, right?
Yep.
You want, a big goal. It starts with, I like the way you laid it out, right? You were already a top producer. You're already doing pretty well, but you're saying, hey, you got advice from someone. I mean, is it fair to say one of the steps to get there was ask someone that's already been there, right?
Yep.
Like someone that kind of knows what the hell they're talking about. I think a mistake people can make. And I see this, James, a lot on the forums. I see it in the Facebook groups and the forums. People are saying, my broker told me to do it this way, to make cold
Mhm.
calls this way, to talk to internet leads this way. And these come up with this nonsensical piece of advice. And I ask them, does your broker close any deals from this? Does your broker
Yeah.
make any
Yeah.
money from this advice? Because I
Yep.
do, and I'm telling you, that is advice that someone that has no idea what they're talking about would say, right? So I think it's a very valuable piece of advice. Talk to someone that's been there, right? I think
Yeah.
that's a hack. It's a cheat code.
One of my friends posted this last night, and I thought it was perfect. They said, we must stop asking people directions to places they have never been. Glennon Doyle, right? Like, if
Love
you
that.
want to get somewhere, how are you going to ask somebody that's only making half a million in order to get to a million? You have to fly with the people, be with the people that have been there, and they can give you the advice. And if you in that group of people that has done that, you're more likely just through osmosis able to get to that spot and learn from them. So I think that's huge. Like, yeah, ask the directions of the people that have actually been there, not the ones that haven't, which to your
Yeah.
point.
100%. And that's why I think, whether it's a coaching program, a mentor, an informal mentor, a formal
Yes.
mentor. One thing that's been huge for me, because I'm in the real estate industry, but my
Mhm.
model is more like a marketing agency than it is a real estate team, right? The model of
Yeah.
my business. So my coaches, my mentors are people that are doing $1 million a month in income, right? In revenue. A
Dang.
million a month are the people that I've looked for. So okay, great. I want what you want, what you have, right? So tell me, how
Yeah.
did you get there? You know, and that's how I got better versed in things like team building teams and digital ads, things that agencies do, right? But the same principle applies. Who you ask is half the quality of the answers. Who you're asking.
Yep.
Do they even know kind of what they're talking about? But let's say, right, you get some good advice, James. Okay, you got that advice. They've planted a seed.
Uh-huh.
Well, maybe you can share it with us. What did your mentor
Oh,
say to go? I mean, how do you cross that $1 million threshold? How do you get there? If because the I think it's the median income of agents in the U.S. I think is $40,000 in
yeah.
in in
Sorry
in
about that.
in GCI. You know,
Yep.
I don't think it's a true number. I think it's more like 80,000 and zero is the
Yeah.
typical. Like you're either at 80 or at zero. But
Yep.
the way averages work, it's about 47,000, 40 something thousand. Like, okay, cool. That's McDonald's money, in my opinion. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But that's where most agents are at, right? And, and
Yep.
and and I think they're, how do you get from there to multiple six figures and then to pass a million? Talk to, like, you were talking to someone that's in that below six figures number, where most agents are at. What would you tell that?
So I think the best piece of advice I ever got or an understanding was the amount of work it takes to make 100,000, you can make 250. The amount of work it takes to make 250, you can make 500,000. 500,000, get to a million. It's all about the same amount of work, right? Because you only have so many hours. What it comes down to is systems and the people that you're talking to and the people that are helping you, right? So I remember when I got my first assistant, I did a partnership with a gal, and we made $300,000 each, right? We ended up splitting
Wow.
that next year. I hired
Oh,
one.
another agent, like a licensed person or with like an
Yeah,
admin?
a licensed person. Yep.
Oh,
Which
gotcha.
was a
Another agent.
huge mistake for me, right? And I'm constantly
Got
talking
it.
about that. Like, don't do that. Um, and then the second time, the next kind of quote unquote partnership that I had, which wasn't a partnership, I just hired a gal that had been in real estate for 10 years just to handle all my escrows and help me with my assistant and building my websites, right? So she helped me. Then I got two buyers agents. They helped work the buyer leads, and I just focused on the seller leads and started to build up my sphere of influence, right? And then from there, I started hiring ISAs and I started hiring virtual assistants as well, which was huge. I mean, I remember what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, I had an ISA make a call for me, and I made $200,000 on that flip. And it was one simple call that she made. I pay her
Wow.
some Philippines, right? Now she works for me on the admin side, helping me with all stuff. But really, what it comes down to is like I have it written down here. I'm going to share this with you as well. So these are the 5 steps, the fastest ways to fail in real estate, which is you don't have a business plan, right? You
Yeah.
don't follow a schedule. You don't stick to one strategy. So that's what I want to talk about, right? You need to stick to one strategy that works really well for you. And then once you learn that strategy, then you can move on, right? What did Bruce Lee say? I'm not afraid of the guy that knows 10,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the guy that has practiced one kick 10,000 times, right? Once you learn that kick, then you go to another kick, which for me was social media and learning how to post after I got done with my cold calling, right? And the cold calling worked the same way. I started off with for sale by owners, then I went to canceled and expireds, then I went to neighborhood calling, and then I incorporated all that and put it into my social media because I found that when I was calling these people, these prospects, they were looking me up on social media and looking me up online, right? And they wanted to see how well I
Mhm.
could actually work for them and what I've done. And so they would always call me back and say, wow, you're posting a lot on social media. You've really sold this, this, this. I'm like, yep, absolutely. And so all my websites were built out, right? My Zillow, my realtor.com, now homes.com is another website I would focus on to get your profile set up with them, which I think would be great. So once I got those systems in place, then after I got to about 100 closings myself and
Wow.
made that jump to 183 one year, then I had two assistants, I had two virtual assistants, and then I had more buyers agents at that point, right? So
I
I'm
got you.
adding as needed. And in some cases, I would add before I needed because I knew what the trajectory was and I was confident in the marketplace. So putting people in place before that jump was huge for me as well. Because here's the thing, once you're at a certain level, and you're going towards the next level, you want that person to be really prepared so they can run fast with you, right? And it takes a little bit of time. It's like quarterbacks in the NFL. Like if they get a couple years behind the starter and they learn the system and they get a little bit more pushed into that, then a lot of these guys are studs at the end of the day, right? So getting your people trained in a timely manner in which follows you and their trajectory. Because if you throw somebody into, hey, I do 150 closings a year, you've never really done this, I'm going to throw you in, they're going to fail. Like, or unless they're a really special
Exactly.
person, right? So you have to grow with them. So my next step after learning the cold calls was social media, right? And then
So,
after that,
so, but you use, yeah, this is really interesting because I rarely hear social media in the same vein as cold calling, as in augmenting your calling, improving your calling. So you said that you built up your online profiles, you beefed them up because you had sold homes, you had sold properties, you were great
yeah,
at what you did. You published your results on social, it sounds like, right? You made sure
yep.
that the world knew that you were closing deals, you were listing properties. So when you called someone, so would you point them to that, or you just knew they were going to look you up anyway?
Oh no, absolutely I would. So can I do a screen share or no?
Yeah,
Do we do
go.
it?
Yeah, let me nail that. Give me one sec. Let me make sure that this
All right,
thing
let
is
me show
on.
you
Okay,
something that I
go
do.
for it.
Okay. So what I do here is I have a template that I built out, right? And I'm going to show this to you real quick, which is super helpful. I have this right here, which is it's my here to help email, right? So my here to help email says, "Good morning, thanks so much. Here's my Zillow profile." And then I had a YouTube channel or I have a YouTube channel where I go and post videos. So this has a testimonial video with 5, 6 clients of mine giving
Gotcha.
giving information uh on what their experience was with me. So that's one thing I do. Then I put in my marketing plan right into that. Comps that I have sold in that exact area and that way I'm a little bit more trustworthy when it comes to, hey, has he actually sold these houses, right? And has he
Yeah.
actually sold property? So you're building that out. Like I didn't have that here to help email in my first year, but I built that up because I knew it was the system that I needed. Then I had a marketing plan, which wasn't super great, but I started building on that because I was like, if I'm going on 5 to 10 listing appointments a week, I want to land like at least 7 of those, right? Hopefully
Yeah.
80% of them. So I had to rebuild my marketing plan at that point. Then I had to have some, but I didn't want to have to do all that work. I wanted to be the visionary, and then I had to have an implementer. And implementers are great, right? And you don't have to pay them a ton of money. Like the implementer I had, there's 2 of them and I paid them 150 grand a year. So 75,000 each, right? And then some bonus structure and whatnot. But they helped me get my marketing plan up. They helped me update my profiles, everything. So I could focus on one thing. It goes back to sticking to one thing, which was my calls, right? And then after that, I started buying online leads, but I focused on seller leads at that point. And then what I did is I changed my schedule. So my schedule in the morning was 7:30, 7:45. I'm calling all the new canceled expireds for sell by owners, right? Then after that, the 9 o'clock time, I would then go to my follow-up calls. That would be the calls for my canceled, my expireds, my for sale by owners, and then go to my new online leads that were there or the follow-up with them. And then I'd go to circle prospecting. And I spent 2 to 3 hours a day doing those calls and then setting up appointments for me between 12 and 5 p.m. 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. So
Well,
that was the system I used. And it was my calendar. My wife knew what was happening. My friends knew what was happening. My team members and my assistants knew, hey, if you call James between 7:30 and 11, he's probably not going to pick up. You could probably text him and see if he'll get back to you. But you have to stick to a schedule as well. You have to have a daily schedule in all of this.
yeah,
Um,
I love that, Jens, because I think people, you're not saying anything that is like, oh my goodness. So he makes his calls every morning. Like, yes, that's what he does,
yeah,
right? So I think people sometimes think want overcomplicate it, right? They
yeah,
go, what's the best time of day? I get this question. I get this question, and for me, it's a red flag. Gus, what is the best time of week? What's the best time of day to make calls? Because I'm thinking they're trying to find the 30 minutes they can do and get the most out of it. And I go, okay, I know the numbers by heart. What are the top? But the
yeah,
difference between just calling from 8 to 9, 8 to 10, 8 to 11 every day versus calling in the peak contact time Saturday morning is
Yeah,
like a 5% difference. Okay. So,
absolutely.
just the way you're thinking about it, this is not an optimization problem. This is do it every day. Do it every
Yes.
day for 2 hours a day, and good things are going to happen, right? So I tell folks it's a lot of it is just sit down and do the work. There's more to it though, James. I do want to say this because sometimes I get the other side of the coin, agents that get on the phone and go, Gus, Circle Prospect doesn't work. I've been trying it for a whole month. I haven't gotten anything from it, right? So I want to ask you this, James, because it's not just about making the calls. Because you can make the calls and you can be terrible on the phone. You can suck on the phone, right? Because you can make calls. Okay, so making calls is step one. You got to sit down and make calls. Then you got to know how to make calls. Okay, when
Yeah.
you get a seller on the line, you've got to be able to have them open up, handle some of the most obvious objections known to man, and try and get your foot in the door, try and tease out that motivation and redirect some of those objections. James, how did you get good at that? Because so you're making the calls, you're disciplined, you're sitting down every day, 2 to 3 hours a day.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of agents that try this, they'll fail. How do you get good at that? How did you solve that problem?
Dude, you hit on so many things that are like gold, right? So how do you get good at calls? The first thing is you start doing it, right? And you stay consistent. So if you go put it in perspective, real life, right? If you say I want to get in shape and you work out twice a week, but you work out for an hour and a half, then you're not going to see that many results. But if you break up that hour and a half into 20-minute sections and you do it 7 days a week, 6 days a week, and you work out every day for 20 minutes, you're going to see much more improvement than if you just fire hose it into 1 or 2 sessions, right? That's the big difference. So that's working out. That's life in general. It's just staying consistent with anything will make sure that you see the results that you want to see, right? Making the calls, just do it. Just get on the phone. And I think the biggest thing why people aren't successful in making calls, and I'll have a ton of people be like, no, that's not right. That's not right, is they focus on a script too much, right? People want to talk to human beings. It's human being to human being sales. They want to know that you're confident, that you know what you're talking about, but they also want you to relate and build rapport with them. So my script, if you will, is question-based scripting, right? Just getting to know them, asking questions. And then the second part of that is exactly what you said, getting in front of them. You have to set up a preview appointment because as soon as you set up a preview appointment with somebody, what's going to happen? Their wall goes down. They're no longer keyboard warriors. You're going to get to know them. You're going to get to see that they like the Dallas Cowboys. They like hockey. They like reading books, right? And then you can build a rapport with them. The more rapport that you build with somebody, the more they'll like you. And people generally hire the people that they like and they feel that are confident and competent with them. So you absolutely have to get in front of somebody to do that. But that starts with consistency. Happens with not just sticking to a script and sounding like a robot, but building that rapport. And then thirdly, getting in front of them, getting to know them on a deeper level. Like, what is your true goal? What drives you? What do you like? Like getting to know them and making friends. And then if you do all of that and you stay consistent with your calls, everything will get easier. I swear the calls will be like second nature. You stick to a certain time frame throughout the day that you're going to be making those calls every morning. And I do the morning time, right? And I'm sure evenings are going to be really good because most people are home. But if you do it in the morning, like then uh, it's out of the way, right? And I started calling at 7:30, 7:45 because the title companies didn't open till 9 and they're not going to start sending their emails till 9:15, 9:30. The lenders aren't going to be doing that. And then people generally are respective of your time until 9 o'clock in the morning to talk about any business, right? But I found if I got somebody on the phone that was a new cancel expired for sale by owner, first thing, they didn't have 10 other agents calling them, so they weren't noticing that they're valuable, right? And they weren't hearing the same thing over and over again because you're the first person to call and you can generally set an appointment with them first as well. So really working that out and systematizing, but it goes back to exactly what you said. It's really simple. Pick a time
Yeah.
to call, make the calls, stay consistent, meet people, get them to like you, do the same thing over and over, over and over.
Rinse and repeat. And you're right, James, because because some people would say, I mean, why would I call in the morning? People are getting ready, people are this, that. I would tell them, you're not calling in the morning because it's the best
Yeah.
time for the seller. It's the best time for you, right? it is the best, like you just said, it's the best
Yeah.
time for you. So you're much more likely to be consistent with it. It's like trying to go to the gym in the afternoons. Like, that might be fine if you're a single guy in your 20s. Try having, kids, a
Yeah.
wife, and a business to run. You're not going to be going to the gym in the afternoon. Probably
No.
not, right? Because you're going to be pretty busy. So it's what is the most convenient thing for you to stay consistent with. And it's not because we want to knock people or because, Gary Keller said it in his book. It's the best way for a reason. For a reason, people kind of stick to that schedule because they can actually do it consistently without getting bombarded with everything you're doing, the
Yep.
transactions and the inspections and the I don't know, the loan officers calling for this and that. I mean, all those things are noise, right? And James, I've also seen this happen. This is a very common issue. I want to know how you dealt with it. Let's say they listen to James, they get down to make calls. And you're right. You're actually going to get, just by making calls and just being a little smart about what's going on, you're going to get better just, just,
Yeah.
just by listening to what you're doing, right? You're going to get better just by doing. You're going to get some deals in the pipeline, 30 days, 60 days, and go get some deals. And then suddenly you're busy. Okay. So now you got, sellers asking you questions. You've got buyer agents asking you questions. You've got title and this and that and that. And then what happens, James? As soon as you can, you stop making those calls. Oh, you know what? I gotta respond to this inspection, and I gotta do it today, and I gotta do it before noon. So you make 30 minutes of calls, and then you make no calls, and then I'll catch up tomorrow. And the agents stop making those calls, okay? And then 90 days are back to square one in most cases. In most cases. So how did you deal with that? Because you shot up to 100 transactions pretty quickly within a year or two.
Yeah.
How did you not fall into that roller coaster of I'm too busy, let me stop making calls, and then I got no business, gotta be making calls, and like that? How did you deal with that problem?
Well, you hit it right where I was going to transition, right? Because I was about to say you're going to get busy, right? Then what you need to do while you're getting busy, while you are getting busy, right? So before you are busy, you need to write a list in your phone or on a piece of paper, the things I don't want to do, the things that don't make me money, which is your paperwork, your system, like implementing some of those systems, like the stuff you don't want to do that takes too much time away from your prospecting, that's constantly pulling you and you feel obligated to do it, right? So once you start making good money and you start getting to that point, what do you do with the money? You reinvest it into the business with people and systems because those people and those systems will keep you being able to do the calls and the money making activities, right? So then you're still able to do that. You're keeping the machine going, you're keeping the machine going, and then it's outputting money, outputting money, outputting money. But if you have to come over here and the machine's not running, you're like, oh shoot, I'm not getting any money now. Like now I need to go back to that, right? And so you're doing the real estate roller coaster, which is what my dad said. You're up,
Very
you're down,
typical.
you're up, you're down. Mine was a straight up trajectory, just like this, and has been ever since. But so you have to invest in people, you have to invest in ISAs, you have to invest in your virtual assistants. That will be the number one indicator of if you're going to be successful is if you can start delegating that type of work. But it's hard, even if you have a good ISA, you still have to set the appointments and you still have to go, right? Or at
Yeah.
least go to the
Yeah.
appointments. So
A
you have
hundred
to
percent. Oh,
understand
and,
that.
and I want to talk about that, James, because I think there's a big misconception when we talk about ISAs. People think, okay, but I see ISAs come into the conversation, one of two ways. One way is the good way, one way is the bad way. The bad way is I hate calling. I don't want to make calls. I know. I'll hire an ISA, then I don't have to make any calls. And then I'll just go attend and sign the listing agreement. And,
Yeah.
and and I see that, sentiment, it's a real sentiment. And I go, you're gonna fail. This is not gonna work. You're gonna be disappointed. You're going to expect way too much from what your ISA can do. And you're not going to develop the skills to take that hand raiser, that motivated seller, and get them an appointment, number one, and get them to sign on the dotted line. So, we talked about leverage. I think an assistant people understand, someone that respond to those emails, someone to respond to those inspectors and
Yep.
buyer agents, someone to take all the non-income producing activities off of your plate. New income producing activities. I'm not going to say, contracts don't make you money. Of course, they make you money, but new income producing activities, anything that isn't that shouldn't be your priority. But ISA is a little bit different, right? ISA is a lead generation role. So
Yeah.
how did you first come into, contact with the ISA role? And did you go into it thinking they'd set a bunch of listing appointments for you? Or how did you figure it out? Because James, a lot of people don't figure it out. They try
Yeah.
ISA, they go into it with that expectation, they get disappointed, and they toss it away. How did you make it work for you?
That's a really good point that you made because a lot of people fall into that trap where they think they're just going to be set up with listing appointment after listing appointment. The objective of an ISA is to give you warm leads, and then you're supposed to sync those warm leads. In some cases, the ISA can set up appointments for you and you just go. But instead of doing all the neighborhood cold calling and all the circle prospecting and whatnot, you're having your ISA call those people, set them up for you to call them because they showed some sort of interest, and then you nail down the appointment at that point. And I can't tell you how my business changed drastically once I did that. Once I started hiring ISAs and people working those leads for me, because it was a warm lead, all I had to do was call, have a conversation, build a rapport, and then I got the listing appointment with them, right? But I'm not spending 2 to 3 hours circle prospecting. My ISA is spending 2 to 3 hours circle prospecting and sending me those warm leads. And that's how I capitalized on that, was by using the ISA the right way and not, generally if it seems too easy, it probably is. And they're not going to be setting you up with those. They're not going to be just setting you up with listing appointments. You still got to call.
I got it. So you brought him in, and you kind of, I guess you kind of figured it out, quickly that okay, this is the. Did you have any coaching, any mentorship on that, or did you just end up figuring it out? Okay, this is useful. I'll leave them at that, right? How did you was it trial and error, just figuring it out little by little? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, by the time I started putting ISAs into place, I kind of knew, well, I knew how calling worked and I knew
Wow.
exactly what I wanted their objective to be. So I was like, okay, you're going to take the leads. They're going to come in from Vulcan 7 into Mojo. This is the list that I want you to call. Send these people, put them in my calendar, right? So every day I log in. That's the first thing I do is I log into my calendar. I hit start, and those are the people that I'm following up with that entire time. Those are the 50 to 75 contacts I'm trying to make that day. But it's just free flow. I thought, hey, if I don't, the biggest aha for me is like, I don't want to just sit here and do neighborhood cold calling. Like, for one, the conversion rate's not super great, right? When it is, it's amazing because there's very low competition. But I don't want to be the one to do that when this is a conversation that anybody could have. Hi, hey, Gus, this is James Michener with Realty One. How are you? Oh, great. Hey, I was just giving you a call to see if you were by chance looking to sell your house in the next year or two. Well, we might be looking in 6 to 9 months. Okay, great. Do you mind if I send you email and a thank you card and put you on HomeBot? Yeah, that would work. Perfect. Then that goes into my calendar. I call that person the very next day, talk to him, confirm the information. And then sometimes they're like, actually, it's going to be like 3 months. Cool, perfect. I'm calling them every 2 weeks at that point, and they're
Okay.
going in the calendar. But that was a warm lead where I didn't have to go through 100 of them to get that one, right? Somebody else did that for 10, $15 an hour. They did that.
Yeah.
And then I capitalized on getting the listing at that point in time. So it was really just knowing what I did myself and taking myself out of that role, giving it to somebody else and saying, this is my new role here. So they'll call, give me the leads, and then I'll take care of it from there. But you also need to have your CRM set up too, because in all of this, when you get your closings, you must set up your sphere of influence. Like that's so huge. Like just don't go for the now business. I got stuck in that for a little bit, Gus, and that was one of the things that I just did not like how my business was at that point in time because it was like now, 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 now. It's like actually nurture those people, talk to them. They're friends of yours. Like you did a good job for them. They like you, they respect you. They're still in town and they know other people. Nurture them. And so I built the CRM out to where there'd be touches through HomeBot, through automatic emails, through client appreciation events, to me calling them once every 75 to 90 days, right? Touching base with them. And then guess what? All my referrals started coming in. So I would have to do
Love it.
less of the canceled expired calls and for sale by owners. So that was a big thing for me on that.
Yeah, no, and James, that's huge, right? That's huge. I should get it. So I've had, here on the show, I've had, some people, some big producers, top producers. Brett Boone out of Oklahoma City. He's a monster on the phone.
Yeah.
FISBO expired, canceled. I asked him, what's your best lead source known to man? He goes, my past clients in my sphere.
Yep.
Like that's
Absolutely.
money. It's all it's once you figure that out. But you're a cold caller. Yeah, that's all getting you business. but the
Yep.
machine that's going to grow and just keep growing with very little investment, ROI, talking about ROI, he goes, it's the database. It's not, it was not close. It's the
Yep.
database, because once you actually figure out how the database works, to join his team, he had to bring 200 people into his database day
Yep.
one. And he would teach you how to turn that into 20 transactions over the next 12
Oh,
months. He goes,
easy.
that was his goal. That was his goal. 10% conversion every year over year. And,
Yep.
and, and, and when you look at it that way, you go, my God, right? Like, absolutely, that's the way. If every agent in America could do that, grab a list of 200 people and figure out how to get 20 transactions every year over year out of that list, like, everyone would do amazing, right? But I think people don't. How did you come to the? Did you ever come to Jesus moment and go, why am I not getting any deals from my database? I talked to another top producer out of Seattle, Antoine Stetner, 1,000 homes. He had sold 1,000 homes. I asked him, have you ever called him back? No.
Yeah.
He's like, he had never called, he was so busy with the leads and
Yeah.
the REOs and the expired. It's like, well, that's my business. I
Yep.
told him, I don't know if you ever did this or not, but I said, if you call 1,000 people back that have been your clients, I think your business is going to change. I think
You get
it's,
a hundred
I don't
more
know,
closings out of that, like 10%.
100 more.
Can I pause real quick because my computer's just about to die and I
Oh,
forgot to plug
don't
that
worry.
in?
We'll edit it, at the end. No worries.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
We'll fix it.
Sorry, Gus. I thought I did that.
No, no worries. We'll make sure we fix it.
Yes. Okay. Dude, you're doing really good at this. You're asking all the right questions and flowing
Yeah,
really,
man. No,
really well.
I've done it. I've done
Crazy.
it, right? And I'm the the
You are so
advocate
good
for
at
the
this.
audience, right? I'm the
Yeah.
advocate for the audience. I ask what a novice, not even a novice agent, an agent that's new to this whole calling thing, right? Like, how
Yeah.
do you do it? Yeah, but how, right? Like, give me the meat, give me the juicy soundbite. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, I'm good at that. I
You're
know
doing
that part of it.
perfect.
So
It's crazy.
let's reset. Yeah,
So,
let's reset on that. So James, how did you realize that your database could be such a big part of your business?
because I started getting more leads from my sphere of influence just naturally, right? And I was like, dude,
They were
these are,
calling you. They were calling
yeah,
you. They were
they're
coming to
calling
you.
me,
Okay,
right?
I got
And
you. I got you.
so I would touch base. I would talk to him like, "Oh, how are you doing? Great, great. Hey, I see you're doing all this family stuff and you're still doing business. It's so cool to see all of that." I'm like, "Oh, so you're following me on social media? Absolutely. I love watching your journey. It's so cool. My friend is actually looking to sell." And I said, "Hey, look at this Facebook post. You need to check out James Michener because he's selling X amount of homes. He just sold one down the street from you." And I'm like, how many people are not doing that though on social media and following me? So I was like, no way, I got to change this. So one thing I wanted to say, and I broke this down really easy, right? Is if you if you make 5 contacts per day, 4 days a week, that's 20 contacts a week, right? That's 80 contacts a month. That's 960 a year. And you convert 10% of those, that's 96 closings. That's just by making 5 new contacts, right? And then you follow up
New
with your sphere of
contacts.
influence.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then if you follow up with your sphere of influence and you're doing social media and you're giving them calls and text, that's so easy. I was nervous to call my sphere of influence, right? I found that to be my hardest call. And what changed in my head is after I had enough conversations, I realized I don't even need to ask these people for referrals. They're already picking up the phone. They already like me. And guess what their favorite topic to talk about is? Real estate. So that gets brought up organically. And so after that, I was like, I'm just going to make these calls and check in and say, hey, Gus, it's James. How you doing? I just want to say hi. I haven't talked to you in a while. Oh, I'm good, James. What are you up to? And I say, and I'm like, work's going well. The market's doing great. Oh, yeah. How is the market? My neighbor was maybe looking at selling. So we were just talking about that last night. I'm like, oh, it's great. Do you want me to reach out to him or feel free to send them my number, right? So it wasn't a sales call. There's other coaches that will
Love it.
say, after you get done with that call or right before it's about to end, say, hey, Gus, if you don't mind, if you could pass up my number to 1 or 2 people, that'd be amazing, right? They don't want to they like that's so salesy. They want a friend. They
Yeah.
don't want somebody just to count them as another number.
100%. And I think that ask is what keeps people from making the call.
Yes.
Hey, guess
Yes.
what, James? Out of the blue, how's it going? Hey, by the way, who do you know wants to buy or sell? No one wants to make that call. No one wants to receive that call.
No.
So James, I 100% agree with you. The calling my database, the phone would weigh 10,000 pounds for me. Like that
Yeah.
was, and I'd called old expireds. I call old expireds in circle. I doing this back in 2013, 14, 15. So a little bit of a different market. Old expireds was like shooting fish in a barrel. That's
Yeah.
what I did. Old expired and circle, right? Because that was one of the easiest calls for me to make, quite
Yeah.
frankly. But calling my database, oh my God. I had to like mentally prep for it. The thing that made it, this is a little hack I found, right? You got to
Yeah.
find a way to make this work for you because it works. If you do it right, it works.
Yep.
I would do a client event every 3 months.
Yes.
And it was usually me teaching a class about what? About real estate, right? Like what else was going to talk about? So I was teaching a class about first-time home buyers or investing or this and that. And instead of asking them for business, I'd go, James, I'm teaching a class on real estate. Can you go? It's going to be awesome. Oh, whatever they said, didn't matter. And James, one more question. I a favor. Who do you know that might benefit from a class like this, right? That
Nice.
might
Yeah.
actually that can use this and you think would really, really, really help them out in the next year. Can you think of
Yeah.
anybody? Oh man, blah blah blah. Let me, I had a lot of groups, that were friends. Let me send to my group text. Let me see if anyone is interested. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Can you share it on social? Let me share it to me on social and I'll publish it and see who else is interested. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. That's it, right? It's like I would kind of ask, but not really, right? Who
Yeah.
can benefit from this event? And I go, oh man, let me think about that. That's it. It's a lot easier, right? So you're right. The answer is find a way to make the call, right? Because
Yeah.
because without that little hack, I wouldn't have made the call. I wouldn't have made the call. I would not be calling my database. I wouldn't have closed, 30 homes, off from a small list of maybe 100, 200 people
Yeah.
if I didn't make those calls. And I would make them 4 times a year. Maybe if I would have been more consistent, it would have been better. But 4 times a year, I couldn't do it more often. I just could not make
Yep.
myself call more often than that. But every 4 times a year, I would call through a list of 200 people, and
Yep.
those are the results that I was able to get, and they changed my business. I got, oh, it's amazing. So that is it. But it's simple, not easy. I agree with that. It was always the hardest call for me to make.
Yeah.
Always, always, always. And it's people you already know, and they already like you, which
Yeah.
is weird,
Yes.
but it was fun.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. How did you invite them to the event? Did you do a Facebook group? Did you do a event on Facebook? Did you call, email, text them? Like, how did you do that to get those people there? What was your process? Because I
So
know a
so
lot of people have that question.
Yeah, so for me, but this was years ago, right? This is 10 years ago. So it was always an in-person event. If I were doing those calls right now, I wouldn't even bother with the in-person event. I would jump on Zoom and like we're doing right now. And I would
Oh,
invite a
nice.
bunch of people to this, right? So that I
Yep.
would even do it even easier. But I would do it in person and I would call everyone. And if they didn't respond, I'd leave a voicemail and then I'd try to reach them again, right? So I
Yep.
didn't even do texting. I didn't even do texting or emailing. And I didn't do social either. I literally just called everyone up. I think now if we're doing it now, I would probably use more channels because there's a lot more. So,
Yeah.
but back then it was just picking up the phone and talking to people. It was just that, and I would get a 15% referral rate. So out of 100, 15 referrals every year. If I did it, I would call them 4 times, and I measured that. And I'm an engineer, right? So I had an Excel spreadsheet like rock with this thing. So about across 3 years, I measured it 15% conversion rate to
Yep.
referral. So they would refer me someone, and those referrals 80% of the time would close.
Yep.
That's a pretty good lead source when 80% of the
Oh,
time. Actually,
huge.
probably more than that. It was just like guaranteed money. It was guaranteed money.
Huge.
And you, if I sat down and made, 2 days of calls, what was that like maybe 6, 7 hours of calls across 2 days, I'd make 30,000 in the next 30,
Yeah.
40 days.
Yeah.
It was like that. It helped make the call too. Once I knew that number, I'm like, okay, I think I want to do this, right? So that's how I did it. Really, really simple way. If I were doing it now, I feel it would be easier, right? So there's more ways to do it. You can do it virtually. You can do an event. So for Power ISA, James, I do a webinar, like a virtual class, almost every week now. And I
Wow.
invite my database of 3,000 people every week because, with a database that large, the numbers change. I mean, not everyone's going to
Yeah.
see it. So I always have a group of 30, 40, 50 people that maybe have never seen me before. It's a little bit different. If it's my personal database, it's a lot simpler than that. You don't need
Yeah.
to do an event every week. You do one every 3 months. That's
Yeah.
more than enough, right? Because they're going to know who you are. So it's a little bit of a simpler problem to solve. But it is that simple because can they go to the event? Can they not go to the event? Who cares? It's
Yeah.
the question. It's staying top of mind. It is
Yep.
asking them who can else can benefit. That's the goal. If they can go or not, doesn't matter. As long as it's valuable, they perceive it as valuable. It could be. I started with classes, then I ended up like growing, right? I had more money. I would do picnic in the park. I rented out a skating rink. I would do drinks and hors d'oeuvres
Yep.
at the local restaurant. So it grew little by little. But I started was just, hey, they let me in my conference room in my brokerage. I'd invite people in there. Simple.
Yep. I think that's great. Yeah, some of the ways we've been doing it too is doing slide broadcast. So it's where you do voicemail drops, which is
I
great.
love that.
It hits everybody at once. And then the CRM, building out that CRM so that your assistant's texting them on your behalf saying, "Hey, it's James, just want to say hi. We have this event coming up." Like there's so many other ways instead of having to pick up the phone for that
True.
and then doing the
True.
Facebook event. So there's just and I had to learn all that stuff as well. And it luckily, I forget how I learned that because a lender called me and I said, "Oh, it didn't even pick up." Oh, she's like, "Oh, I use this thing called Slide Dial." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you can use Slide Broadcast. So if you want to call a bunch of people, use Slide Broadcast. If you want to do just one person individually, you do Slide Dial." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, just so I can give updates so I don't get stuck on the phone, I just do a Slide Dial and I talk to him real quick." I'm like, "What?
Love
No
it.
way."
Love it.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, and everyone reads their voicemail nowadays, right? Like they can get it
yes,
immediately. It's like it's kind of like a text message. So I think that's a brilliant,
yes.
strategy just to get through to people, in a quick and easy way. So I love it, James. James, this has been awesome, man. This has been amazing. We touched on so many things like ISAs and cold calling and cold prospecting and team building. Man, I mean, if people are once again like blown away and impressed, what is the best way for people to reach out to you and continue the conversation? What's the best way to do that?
Instagram's really good. I've been getting a lot of coaching students off of Instagram, just sending me a text message to 928-308-4700, or Facebook messaging me has been really good as well, which my
Love it.
name on that is James Michener, Michener. And then Instagram, let me get that real quick. I'm all kind of new to all this stuff anyways,
No
is
worries.
James R. Michener, Michener, and feel free to reach out. But I've had a lot of people from your particular podcast reach out, wanting
Cool.
to join the coaching, and it's been really good. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed.
So, I mean, for people that don't know what we're talking about, what is your coaching program? What does that look like?
It could be for newer agents or agents that are kind of getting into or are doing about 20 or 30 deals for the most part. It's people that are doing 20 to 30 deals and want to get to 50 or 100 and start building their team, because we're not going to walk through like how to use the dial or how to do it. Like that's a little bit more novice, and I want to get the people in there to really like cultivate them and build on those steps instead of going back to
The
how do you
basics.
use Vulcan 7. So that's kind of my avatar. It's just working with people like that really want to build their business, learn and keep growing their business from 20 transactions, 30, 40, 50, 100 transactions, and then
Love it.
building a team and implementing ISAs, virtual assistants, etc. Because that's where the fun came, right? Was like,
Yeah.
dang, this thing
Leverage.
is building up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Leverage.
So
I love that. I love that. James, great. Thank you so much, for being gracious with your time once again. James, you have a standing invitation. Would love to have you back here in the group,
thank
and
you.
we'll talk about the next interesting topic, man. Thank you so much. And folks, we'll see you here on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Gus.